I don't even know where I'm going with this. Not sure what this bit is supposed to be, but it's the third show, and I'm still really bad at these cold opens. This is Cultured. Hit all the buttons, subscribe, like, whatever you gotta do. Well, it's been quite the year. Those cringe Zoom happy hours, those cringier SNL at home episodes, and the cringiest of all, those drive-by birthday parades with your aunt honking the horn at 8 o'clock on a Sunday, waking up the whole neighborhood. God, every time I walk the wrong way in a supermarket, some cat lady jumps out from behind the bread shelf and starts spraying me with Lysol. This on top of skyrocketing unemployment, a purge on small businesses, the impending collapse of the American middle class, and 500,000 people dead. A rough year. But there's one thing that's kept us going through all of it. Vodka. No, I'm kidding. Hope. That's the only thing keeping us going. And I know it sounds like a cliche, but it's true. Without hope, there is no way to work together towards a common goal. If there's no hope, what's the point? So that's what we've done since the beginning of this pandemic. We've looked for hope, the light at the end of the tunnel. First, it was 2 weeks to flatten the curve. Then it was back to normal by Easter. Then it was the summer. That will kill this virus. Many people thought we would reach herd immunity by the end of 2020, and we just kept going. As new issues arose, as new data became available, we continued to reassess our goals. We continued to search for more hope. It was the only way. And that's only big picture. That's what we did on a global level. But each of us, as individuals, we played this same game on a very microscopic level. At first, parents were only asked to keep their kids home for 2 weeks. Then they had to learn how to homeschool. And before you know it, millions of virtual classrooms had been built in kitchens across America. But don't worry, we said, all will be back to normal soon. It wasn't until November of last year when those ever-moving goalposts finally arrived at a fixed point. The vaccine. It wasn't a perfect solution. No solution to any problem ever is. The best you can hope for is 90% effectiveness, and that's after 2 shots in the arm. The window for clinical research is the shortest in the history of modern medicine, so it's not feasible to account for every possible side effect. Then you've got to build an infrastructure capable of distributing the vaccine. Then you've got to convince 300 million people to get the damn thing. And even if you injected the vaccine into every arm in America, what about these new strains? But the goalposts have moved far enough anymore, and we'd no longer be in the stadium. We don't have another play. The vaccine isn't perfect, but it has to be good enough. It's our only hope. Our only hope if we insist on returning to normalcy, whatever that means. Right now, we're acting under the assumption that COVID will end, and I mean end for good. Put it in a box, leave it to the history books. We believe that our way of life before March of 2020 is still attainable. And I'm sure that's true. But if it's not, then what we just experienced was not a pause on normalcy. It was a change of normalcy. I hope to God that's not true. But what I do know is that for some industries, it's inevitable. There's a term social scientists often use. It's called creeping normality. And it's this idea that massive changes are easier for society to handle if administered in small doses. First, you let the in-laws stay over for the weekend. Then you let them move into the guest room. Before you know it, they're sleeping in your bed using your toothbrush. This is what the movie industry has been going through for the past 12 months, both on the studio level and the theater level. Creeping normality. When the pandemic started and movie theaters were closed, most studios decided to push their big releases to fall of 2020. There were a few exceptions. Universal, for example, decided to release Trolls World Tour at home, video on demand, $20 rental. And they did the same thing with The King of Staten Island in June. But I'm talking about the big ones. A Quiet Place 2, No Time to Die, Wonder Woman. They all punted to the fall. Well, the fall came. Movie theaters were still closed in New York and LA, 2 biggest markets in the country. Christopher Nolan attempted to save cinema with Tenet over Labor Day weekend. That thing bombed. And once again, the goalposts were moved because hope is all we can do. But in the meantime, Mulan was released on Disney+. Trial of the Chicago 7, a big Oscar contender, was sold to Netflix. And by the time we got to December, Wonder Woman 1984 was going to be released on HBO Max, along with Warner Brothers' entire 2021 slate. Creeping normality. This is how it works. But there's still hope, right? I mean, there has to be. AMC was about to file bankruptcy until a bunch of 15-year-olds in their underwear used their tooth fairy money to raid Wall Street. The Wall Street Bets debacle infused AMC with $506 million in cash and saved them for at least another year. And then you look at the box office returns. This weekend was the best weekend for movie theaters, full stop, since the start of the pandemic. All 5 movies at the top of the domestic box office this weekend grossed at least $1 million, including the Bob Odenkirk, John Wick-esque thriller Nobody, which grossed $6.7 million. That movie's probably going to make its money back. And overseas, the news is even better. Godzilla vs. Kong debuted internationally this weekend, grossed $121 million at the global box office, including $70 million in China. Now, China isn't the United States, and Godzilla vs. Kong will debut on HBO Max this Wednesday. But it's something. It's hope. Yet, this was the week that Disney decided to announce that Black Widow, the first new release from Marvel Studios since the pandemic began, would be hitting Disney Plus this July. I find this thoroughly bizarre. I think if you surveyed 100 Hollywood insiders when the pandemic began, which major film studio would be the last to cave on the movie theater issue, all of them would have said Disney. Now, granted, there are some exceptions. Soul, Mulan, Raya and the Last Dragon, all released on Disney Plus. But Disney has made it clear their theater business is one of their greatest strengths. Why? Because Disney is good at eventizing. It's the house of the mouse. They've done a phenomenal job over the years of convincing us to pay a premium for experiences that are much cheaper elsewhere. It's why you pay $30 for those stupid hats at Disney World. It's not just another county fair theme park with vomit in the bushes. It's the happiest place on earth. Same with Disney movies, particularly Marvel movies. You don't just rent those things for 99 cents on iTunes. You don't pick them up at Redbox after you've done your grocery shopping. They're events. You line up for them. You see them on the biggest screen possible, and you pay a premium to watch them. If not, you feel like you're missing out on a major societal event. But nonetheless, Black Widow is hitting Disney Plus this July, along with the new 101 Dalmatians origin story, Cruella, starring Emma Stone. And I gotta tell you, this movie just baffles me. Whoever convinced Disney to make this movie needs to hop on the first plane to the Middle East and work out this Israel-Palestine conflict. Because if they can get Cruella passed through a major studio, what can't they do? Now, there are a couple things that make this situation unique. For example, when Warner Brothers made their announcement in December, HBO Max had been an abject failure. That was seen as a desperate move to attract more subscribers. Disney Plus already has 100 million subscribers in just over a year. That's an incredible number. WandaVision was a success. Mandalorian was a success. So when Black Widow hits Disney Plus this July, not every subscriber is going to have access to it. You'll have to pay an additional $30 for premiere access. This wasn't a desperate move. Disney did not undervalue its own property in order to populate its streaming library. This was a decision made with strength. And then there's this other issue that only affects Marvel movies. And I know this is comic book nerd BS, but the events of WandaVision affect the new Doctor Strange. The events of Falcon and the Winter Soldier affect the Eternals. These movies and shows are interwoven. So each one of them has a ticking clock. You can't wait forever to release Black Widow. So you understand this decision. It makes sense on paper. There ought to be hope. Box office returns are on the rise. The vaccine is here. People are getting the shot. I live in Connecticut. In 2 days, everyone over the age of 18 will be eligible to receive the vaccine in my state. There's hope. But if we move the goalposts again, that hope becomes false hope. Here's the truth. You know it, I know it, anyone with 2 functioning brain cells knows it. The movie theater business is not sustainable. Streaming is here. It's here to stay. We've gotten used to it. The idea of paying $15 for an experience that you can get at home for free is just inconceivable. And by not embracing the streaming model, these studios are just playing musical chairs for the last seat on the Titanic. All we can do is hope. And there is some hope. Hope that I am very, very wrong. This is Cultured. We'll see you next week.